You don't fear money randomly. It started somewhere. Long before you earned your first paycheck, before bills, before responsibility, your brain learned something about money. And it never forgot. Most people believe their money behavior is logical. They believe it comes from planning, from discipline, from knowing better. But if that were true, money wouldn't feel emotional. You wouldn't feel tension before opening certain screens. You wouldn't feel guilt without knowing why. You wouldn't avoid things that seem simple. And yet, many people do. Not because they're careless, not because they're irresponsible, but because money stopped being neutral a long time ago. At some point, money became connected to fear. Not dramatic fear, quiet fear, the kind that tightens your body before your mind reacts, the kind that shows up as avoidance or over-control or restlessness. Most people never ask where that feeling came from. They just assume it's part of who they are. Here's the psychological part most people miss. The human brain learns fastest during emotional moments, especially moments involving uncertainty, loss, or feeling out of control. When something emotional happens, the brain doesn't record details, it records meaning. So if money was present during a moment of fear, your brain connected the two. Money became a signal, not of value, but of danger. Not consciously, emotionally. And once that link forms, the brain keeps protecting you, even when protection is no longer needed. That's why this doesn't feel logical, because it isn't happening in the thinking part of the brain. It's happening in the part that remembers how something once felt. You can see this play out in everyday life. Someone delays checking things, even when nothing is wrong. Not because they don't care, but because their body reacts first. Someone else feels uneasy spending, even on things they genuinely need. Not because they can't afford it, but because spending once meant risk. Another person reaches for small comforts during stress, not for joy, for relief. These behaviors look different on the outside, but emotionally, they come from the same place, a learned association. And here's why it keeps repeating. The brain prefers familiarity over accuracy. Even uncomfortable patterns feel safe because they're predictable. So the mind repeats what it knows, the same reactions, the same feelings, the same loops. Not to harm you, but to protect you from a threat that existed once. But the problem is, the situation changed, but the emotional response stayed. Most people try to change behavior without understanding the feeling underneath it. They focus on control, but control doesn't dissolve fear. Awareness does. Awareness doesn't mean fixing anything. It means noticing. Noticing the pause before reaction. Noticing the tension before thought. Noticing how familiar the feeling is. That moment when you realize, this reaction feels old. When that happens, something shifts. The emotion doesn't disappear, but it loses authority. The brain pauses, and in that pause, the pattern weakens. You stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and you start asking, "Why does this feel familiar?" That question changes everything, because understanding removes the mystery, and fear thrives in mystery. Money didn't shape you, an emotional moment did, and that moment doesn't control you unless it stays invisible. The real question isn't how to handle money better. It's this: what did money once mean to you that it no longer has to? Sometimes, understanding the origin is enough to loosen the grip.